So in this segment, I want to talk about the augmented sound. I've done this in a previous lesson, actually the first lesson I made, but I want to get a little bit more into it this time. And the augmented scale, or the augmented sound, as I like to think of it. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to try to explain real quick how this book, Thesaurus of Scales and Melodic Patterns, by Slonimsky, how this book kind of works, and how you can use it as a jazz player. So it's not for jazz players, but you can definitely hear a lot of jazz players that have been influenced by this book. And real quick, how it works is kind of what he does. He divides an octave or several octaves into equal parts, as he calls it. So if you take an octave C to C and you divide that into two parts, you get a tritone, right? So there's an equal distance between those two notes. So we have C, F sharp, and C. Imagine that you add or attach a note a half step above, for example. I think that's the first example in this book. Yeah, that's the very first, on the first page. He calls that tritone progression, equal division of one octave into two parts. So I'm not going to give you all of this because obviously I don't own the rights to this book, so I encourage you to get a copy. It's not super expensive, it's quite inexpensive actually, or at least this one was. It's paperback. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to jump to another chapter here. Okay, so on page 27 in this book, he divides the octave into three parts. So that would be this: C, E, G sharp, or A flat, C. And if you know your theory, you know that that's an augmented triad. Okay? Okay, so if we do the same thing, we add a note above each of those notes, you get this, right? So C, half step up. The next note was E, half step up. And then A flat or G sharp. You get an augmented scale. It's not the one that we usually use, so not the one I think of anyway, but we'll get to that later. So imagine that I add a whole step above each note instead. C, whole step. E. Well, then you get the whole tone scale. So he kind of skips that because it's redundant, right? He'll get to that scale later on because that's another division, I guess, of 6 parts, I guess it would be. So we'll jump ahead to the next one, which is example 182 in the book. And that's when you play the note and you go up a minor third. Next note, which is E, minor third, A flat, minor third, back. Then you get what's called the augmented scale. But as I've been trying to make this point before, that you can think of that as a sound rather than a scale. It's not a scale in the same sense. It's more like it's a minor third, it's a minor third. You know, if you think of it as kind of like a composer more than the scale that you're going to practice, that's how I approach this kind of thing. So it's kind of the point I'm trying to make here. this is excellent ear training. You want to do this without your instrument too, because what I'm trying to achieve here, for me anyway, is to be able to hear new stuff. I don't think of this as something that I'm gonna play as a pattern. It's just opening my ears to a new sound, kind of. All right, so you can also create a very kind of Bill Frisell-ish sound, especially in this key, because of the open strings, right? So that's something you can experiment with. All right, so another example in the book is adding two notes. So if I add two notes to the C and the E and the A flat or G sharp, I can create this sound, for example. Whole step, half step. This is what he calls an interpolation of two notes. So yeah. Then I do the same from E, major second, minor second, A flat or G sharp, major second, minor second, back. And this is a scale that Messiaen, the composer Olivier Messiaen, sorry for butchering his name there, but he calls this one of his modes of disposition or something. Yeah, you can, it's on Wikipedia if you want to look into that. It's the 9-note symmetrical scale. So that's going to sound like this. So C, E, A flat, C. Okay, not something you do on every gig. So it's more, again, it's more to come up with new ideas, right? Trying to hear and see the fretboard in new ways, I guess. Moving on here. All right. If you play a note from the original note that is above the next note, he calls that an ultrapolation. So if I go to a fifth, then I go down to the second note, right? Fifth, down, fifth. He calls that an ultrapolation of one note. So C, fifth. That's a great sound. Let's listen to that. All right, and again, excellent ear training. Try to sing that, you know. It's not easy, and it's a great way to get out of the diatonic. It's easy to get locked into the diatonic system, especially if you grow up in the Western world. And being able to hear these sounds can help you break out of that if that's what you want, and I think that's a good thing. All right. Right, now it gets really interesting. On page 91, equal division of 2 octaves into 3 parts. Or equal division of 2 octaves, I should say, into 3 parts. So the same thing, But instead of dividing it like this, C, E, and G sharp, I'm gonna create an open triad. So, and do the same thing. So instead of going, for example, minor third up, it's gonna be, right? So obviously there's tons of combinations from each and one of these divisions or examples. I'm just, you know, scratching the surface. I'm giving you the kind of idea. If you want to get into this and dive into this, you need to get this book, or if you can figure it out yourself. Endless possibilities, right? And it can be daunting, but it can also be very inspiring. So the next example, I'm going to do this. I'm going to create a triad from each note. So C, A flat, and E. And then I'm back. So it's 3 triads, right? Very cinematic sounding to me. Sounds kind of like Star Wars sometimes, I think. So listen. C triad, A flat, E. They could be minor. Okay, so let's get into some licks here. Lick number 1 is an augmented triad and another augmented triad from the same scale. Because you can create 2 different augmented triads from this scale, right? So it's a C augmented triad or E or A flat, and a B augmented triad, or D sharp and G, right? They're symmetrical. So let's listen to example number 1, or lick number 1. Number 2. With open strings. Next one. You can shift it rhythmically. Make it more interesting. Alright, so lick number 4, 3 augmented or 3 major 7 sharp 5 arpeggios. C major 7, E major 7 sharp 5, A flat. Alright, so have fun and get a copy of this book. I really recommend it. It's something you can use for the rest of your life. And there's so much more that I didn't even mention at the end. Here's crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. So I'm gonna jam some on my augmented backing track, and I shall see you next time.
you.